When you think of the muscle car era, your mind probably jumps to the heavyweight champions. Chevy's 396 and 427 big blocks, Mopar's 446 pack, Ford's 428 Cobra Jet. These were the engines that defined the era, giant cubic inch bruisers that turned Detroit's cars into street brawlers. But what if I told you there was a small block, just 327 cubic inches, that didn't just survive in the land of giants, but often beat them? This is the shocking truth about Chevrolet's 327 L79, a motor so perfectly balanced, so finely engineered, and so underestimated that it became a legend in its own right. A small block that punched far above its weight and embarrassed big blocks at their own game. Setting the stage, the muscle car wars. The mid-1960s were pure chaos in Detroit. Horsepower was currency, and every manufacturer was trying to outdo the others. Bigger was better, louder was faster, and cubic inches were everything. Chevrolet already had its small block V8S making waves since the 1955 265. By the mid-60s, the 327 was already a solid performer. But in the shadows of the massive 396 and 427 big blocks, few expected a small block to change the rules of the game. Then came the L79, a package introduced in 1965 that didn't rely on raw size. Instead, it relied on balance, precision, and drivability. It was proof that the little guy still had a shot in a world dominated by giants. The secret formula of the L79. On paper, the L79 didn't look like a monster. Rated at 350 horsepower at 5,800 RPM, it seemed respectable for a small block, but not nearly enough to scare off the mighty big blocks boasting 425 horsepower or more. Yet, on the street and at the strip, this little block routinely embarrassed engines with far bigger numbers. So how did the L79 earn its reputation as a giant killer? The answer was in the hidden details. A collection of carefully engineered parts that, when combined, created something far greater than the sum of its specs. The high-lift hydraulic camshaft, the 151 cam. This wasn't just another factory grind. It gave the L79 its rev-happy personality, letting the engine breathe deep and pull hard, where other small blocks fell flat. The result was explosive mid and high RPM power that shocked anyone who underestimated it. An 11-to-1 compression ratio. At a time when gas was cheap and leaded, Chevy wasn't afraid to push limits. That high compression squeezed every ounce of energy out of the mixture, turning modest displacement into raw speed. Aluminum intake manifold with a Holley 600 CFM carb. The Holley setup gave the engine razor sharp throttle response and precision airflow, while the lightweight aluminum intake kept the whole system cool and efficient. Lightweight block and heads. Compared to the lumbering big blocks, the small block L79 was hundreds of pounds lighter. That meant sharper turn-in, better balance, and faster acceleration. Not just brute force, but finesse. What this combination created wasn't just horsepower. It created balance. A rare harmony of speed, responsiveness, and agility. Driving an L79 car didn't feel like wrestling a heavyweight bruiser. It felt like stepping into the ring with a middleweight that could outdance and outpunch the competition. The result? A car that felt sharper, quicker, and more alive than its bigger, louder rivals. The cars that carried it. Unlike some legendary engines that only appeared in one Halo car, the L79 showed up across multiple Chevy models, and each one created its own legend. 1965 to 1968, Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu SS. The midsize Chevelle was a perfect match for the L79. While big block Chevelles were nose-heavy bruisers, the small block cars felt nimble and quick. Street racers quickly learned that an L79 Chevelle was not to be underestimated. 1966 Chevy 2 Nova SS. This was where the L79 really shone. Drop a 350 horsepower small block into a lightweight compact Nova, and suddenly you have a street terror. L79. Novas were true sleepers, looking tame but running like a rocket. They earned a reputation as stoplight kings. 1965 to 1967 Corvette. The L79 was the Corvette's sweet spot. Cheaper than the exotic fuel, injected 327s, but offering nearly the same performance. The L79 Corvette gave buyers an affordable sports car that could still humble rivals. Real-world performance. The giant killer. Now here's where the legend really takes shape. On paper, the big blocks should have destroyed the 327. But in the real world, things were very different. A big block Chevy SS 396 was powerful but also heavy. The extra weight up front killed handling and made traction a nightmare. Meanwhile, the L79 Nova weighed hundreds of pounds less. Its smaller size, lighter nose, and rev-happy motor meant it launched quicker, pulled harder through the gears, and often beat the 396 in quarter-mile runs. Contemporary tests and countless street racing stories back this up. An L79 Nova could run low 14 seconds in the quarter-mile right out of the box, sometimes even dipping into the 13 seconds with sticky tires. That was squarely in big block territory. The 327 proved a devastating point. Power-to-weight ratio mattered as much as raw horsepower. Rivals beware, taking on Ford and Mopar. It wasn't just Chevy's own big blocks that got embarrassed. The L79 found itself in street fights with Ford and Mopar rivals and came out on top more than once. Ford 289. Hypo K-code. Ford's high-performance small block made around 271 horsepower. A good motor, but no match for the L79's 350 horses. In equal weight cars, the Chevy walked away. Mopar 340. Small block. Chrysler's 340 was one of the best small blocks ever made, but it didn't arrive until 1968. By then, the L79 had already built its reputation. Big block Mopars, 383s, 440s. These were faster in a straight line, but again, weight was their enemy. Against a Nova, the L79 often shocked them. In short, the L79 wasn't just Chevy's secret weapon. It was a muscle car equalizer across the board. Why it disappeared? So if the L79 was so good, why did it vanish after 1968? Emissions regulations. The late 60s brought the first federal emissions laws. High compression, big cam, small blocks weren't going to survive. Marketing pressure. Dealerships loved selling big blocks. Bigger numbers on the fender meant bragging rights and bigger profits. Internal competition. The 350 small block was waiting in the wings, and Chevy wanted to standardize around it. The 327 had to step aside. The L79 was a victim of timing, politics, and marketing. Legacy of a forgotten hero. Today, the L79 is one of the most respected small blocks in Chevrolet history. Collectors seek out original L79 cars, especially Novas and Corvettes, paying big money for surviving examples. But beyond value, it carries a deeper legacy. It represents the idea that muscle cars weren't just about size or hype. They were about smart engineering. The L79 proved that a well-balanced small block could take on giants and win. It was an engine that punched above its weight, defied expectations, and reminded everyone that sometimes the underdog is the deadliest of all. So, do you think the Chevy 327 L79 was the greatest small block of all time? Or does that crown belong to the 350, the LT1, or even the LS series that came later? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your stories if you or someone you know ever owned an L79 monster. And if you love uncovering the shocking truths about forgotten engines and the cars that defined an era, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell. Because we're just getting started digging into the wildest legends of muscle car history.